In this video, I wanted to talk about Fujifilm's most underrated lens, the 18mm f2. What's up guys, Reggie B Photo here and welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Reggie Ballesteros and I'm a wedding photographer based in the San Francisco Bay Area. So in this video, I wanted to do something a little different and go off script and just casually talk to you guys about why I personally own this lens and why I love to use it for my photography. So first things first, this lens gets a lot of hate on the internet and they pick at a few common things across the board. So first off is the sharpness and just the image quality overall. A lot of people like to say that this lens is not the sharpest one of the bunch. It is just kind of like a meh lens. It's not the sharpest or the best that Fujifilm makes, but the truth is it's a modern lens. It's sharp enough. This lens was released in about I think 2012 or 2013, which is modern for my standard. It's not a vintage lens with very soft, image quality. So one thing you have to just remember is that once you start pixel peeping at 100 to 200%, those types of qualities or defects don't actually show up in the final image at all. If you're trying to judge an image based on that, then you're not really taking into account the whole picture of how it affects real world images and real world photography. Another thing that people like to poke at a lot is the autofocus. Sure, it might hunt a little bit back and forth, and it is a very loud autofocus system compared to other Fujifilm lenses, but the truth is if you're used to using something like the 35mm 1.4 for your photography, the autofocus noise and the behavior is pretty similar. So if you can tolerate that, and a lot of people love that lens and it's a renowned lens for its magic and everything like that, then the 18mm f2 shouldn't be something that you avoid based on that autofocus performance and the behavior and the sound of the autofocus. So the last thing that people like to poke at a lot is that this lens just doesn't have an inspiring field of view or focal length. So at 18mm, it's the equivalent of a 27 or 28mm lens on full frame, and it's not really super wide and it's not really something compressed or telephoto for portraits. It's just really in between, and it's a very general kind of vanilla focal length. And a lot of people find that uninspiring. If you think it looks kind of similar to the shot of an iPhone or another mobile phone, you're actually right, because a lot of mobile phones use the 28mm full frame equivalent focal length as the general purpose focal length for the main camera of mobile phones. And because of this vanilla focal length, people say that it doesn't have any character. It's not really great at doing anything specifically, but it's these points of this lens in combination with the form factor of this lens why it's such an awesome tool for photography and just honing in your photography skills in general. So going back to the focal length, it's a very versatile focal length. It's never going to detract from your work. Sure, it's not going to do you any favors as making it more interesting because it's got distortion and it's not also super compressed to get a lot of bokeh. As a photographer, it's not going to hold you back. So if you don't take a good image, if you don't compose it well, if you don't light it well, if you just don't put all the thought process into creating and visualizing that great image, then of course you're going to get a meh image, or it's not going to be the best. It's just because this lens is just going to show you exactly what you envision, and that's about it. So it's up to the photographer to bring that character, to inject that voice and personality and magic of that photo through your eyes and how you frame things and how you interact with your subject. It's not really just going to just do it for you like say the 16mm 1.4, which can focus very close and get very shallow depth of field, or the 35mm 1.4, which has this magic quality to it, or the 56mm 1.2, which has a lot of shallow depth of field. This lens is going to rely on your creative skills and your vision to create that image and make it interesting. But because it's versatile, you can get very close up, you can take farther back and do kind of documentary work and capture that story, or even do landscape work, or maybe even just take a product shot or anything like that. And because everyone's not actually a pro, this is actually a great focal length for selfies when you're out with your family and just taking quick snapshots. So that's a cool thing about it too. And another great thing about this lens is the f2 aperture. So you do have some modest low light capabilities. It's not going to be a 1.4. You're not going to get that shallow depth of field or light gathering, but you are going to be able to gather more light than say a 2.8 lens or an f4 lens. So some of the competitors competitors are the 16mm 2.8 or the 27mm 2.8, which have smaller form factor wide angle lenses, but the 18mm f2 is the only wide angle lens that is still small and still has a f2 aperture to gather more light. And paired with its ability to focus fairly close up, that gives you some ways to get more shallow depth of field and creamier bokeh in your shots if that's something that you're looking after creatively. And I think one of my favorite things about this lens is its form factor. It's not a true pancake lens like the 27mm 2.8, but it's small. Paired with the X-T20 or the X-T30, you're going to have a very small photography kit that can do, like I said, everything. It's not going to limit you in what you can take. It's a camera kit that you can take every day off to work, when you're traveling, when you're out with your kids, but you can also use it for professional work if you want to, because of the sharpness and image quality is still there. Overall, this lens is a lens that you really have no excuse to not bring with you. It's that small, it's that good, and it's that versatile. And that's something that I want everyone to remember. While it doesn't do anything particularly great, it doesn't have a very inspiring focal length. The truth is that 28mm focal length is something that's used commonly across the camera industry for street photography and documentary work. Otherwise, why would cameras like the Ricoh GR, the Leica Q, or the Fujifilm X-70 use the 28mm 35mm equivalent as the baseline for these fixed lens camera systems? To those people that say it's not the best Fujifilm lens and that the focal length doesn't do anything inspiring for them, again, I challenge you guys to make sure that you perfect your composition, lighting, and everything like that to make sure you're creating visually inspiring images in your head and in your eye first before even putting up the camera, because this lens, again, is not going to hold you back from doing so. If you choose bad light, if you choose bad composition, I've said it before, those things are going to be shown out with this lens, because it's not going to mask it with shallow depth of field. It's not going to mask it with an extremely distorted and interesting image. It's just going to show you what you see, and you better hope that what you see is visually inspiring to the other people who see your photos. I'm sure you've heard it time and time again. The best camera is the one that you have with you. And at the end of the day, if you have a lens like this, the best lens is the one that you bring with you. And if you have no reason to leave it at home, if you bring it with you every day, just have it in your pocket or in your backpack, and you keep practicing with this lens and your Fujifilm camera, you're going to get better faster because you're out shooting all the time. In this world, we have a lot of options, especially with the GAS, the gear acquisition syndrome, where we have so much analysis paralysis with all the options that we can buy. And it turns out that many newer photographers end up pointing the fingers at they chose the wrong lens, they chose the wrong gear, their gear malfunctioned, this is why my image is not great. But if you kind of cut down to a bare bones kit like this, and you just let your eyes and your brain do all the thinking as far as creating those images, you won't really have to point any fingers at any of your gear, but just turn it back at yourself if your images aren't satisfactory. There's something that we can always work on in photography to make sure we're getting great images. Slightly off topic because I'm getting more philosophical about photography and practicing photography, but again, I love the 18mm f2 for its size, its versatility as far as the focal length goes, and its versatility for its low light capabilities. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed the casual discussion about this lens today. I'm hoping you enjoyed the example photos, and I'm hoping you'll reconsider to kind of not listen to all that noise about why this particular lens is not that great, because you know what, for the most part, it's a great tool that will let you get the job done, and more importantly, let you practice your photography and get better as a photographer instead of just relying on the magic of certain lenses. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and let me know down in the comments below if you're interested in seeing more casual reviews and discussions about Fujifilm lenses like this one. Please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, as I post a new Fujifilm or photography video like these two every other week. And if you want to see more of my photo work, follow me on Instagram at ReggieBPhoto for a new post every single day. Alright, that's it for me. Remember to get out, go shoot, and I'll catch you guys next time.